Topic 3. Let me make it bigger too. Here's bigger. Rules for and yes, I am using capitalized rules for addition and and subtraction. So the rules for addition and subtraction. So before we go into any rules, right? Let's right away let's build on them so we can develop the rules, so we can understand where these rules come and how they came to be, right? Because that's how you appreciate these rules. I think. Now also in my class, I'm not too much of rules to like hey, memorize. I'm not a memorization type of person when it comes to just anything, right? It's based on practice and concepts. That's what it is. So here it's a very conceptual part on adding and subtracting using with negatives and positive numbers, okay? But we're going to develop two simple rules that are going to help us appreciate the simplicity of adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers. Okay, so first thing is I'm going to write 4 problems down and we're going to write these together, okay? So 3 plus 2 equals 5, okay? Leave some space below, leave some space below, and we're going to go 3 minus 2 equals 1. Okay, leave some space below 2. And then we're going to go negative 3 plus 2 equals negative 1. Negative 3 menos 2. Negative 3 minus 2, or negative 3 negative 2, right? So again, at this point, it really doesn't matter. Like some people are, this is how you say, no, this is how you say, I don't really care. As long as you know that you know how to identify between a negative and a positive number, that's all that matters. Okay, so we know that these are right. Now that we know these are right, what do you what stands out from here, right? So I'm gonna state the obvious. The obvious is that all these are 3s. They all have a 3. Let's not worry about the sign right now. They just all have 3. The same thing with the 2. They're all 2. So the numbers are the same. So what is different? Yeah, it's the negatives and positives, right? That's what's the difference. There's each of these problems is not exactly the same. What's different is the signs. One is positive and one is negative. So in the first problem, let's identify what this is. This 3 is positive. Would it be better if I do it at the bottom or the top? Maybe the top, huh? Yeah, let's do the top. So the is positive. And the 2 is also positive. So let's move on. Again, I'm gonna wait until the answers. Let's first kind of understand. Let's first ignore all this. Kind of like pretend this is not here. Let's just try to make sense of how these things are different, okay? All right. So let's go to the next problem below. So the next thing, 3, what's in front of it? The same thing here. Nothing is in front of it, so it also has to be positive. Right? Uh-oh. No, not this one. This one is negative. Negativo. How would you say it in another language? Negativo. Oh my goodness. I hope I don't get canceled. That was horrible. That was not on purpose. Positive, and this one is negative. Okay. So far, so good. So now let's look at this one. This is negative. You see what's in front of it, and this one is positive. Okay. And same thing this one, this 3, what's in front of it? The negative. So it's a negative. What's in front of the 2? It's also the negative. So we've identified the values, the signs for each number, for each of these numbers, right? For each row. Now let's continue to look at this side, right? So let me clear these out just so as you're watching this, it makes sense. So let's see this. So what do you notice for these two? For these two numbers at the top, these right here, the top, the first one's positive and the second one's positive. So the question is, the question is, are these signs, do these two numbers have the same sign or different signs? So let's start with that, because that's the first obvious. And you'll see the process right now. So anyways, so in this case, you notice that the signs are the same. So here they're the same. So let me bring that back. So the signs here are the same. Same sign. Here we know that they're different. Here they're different. And in this other problem here, they're also different. Right? And then in the bottom, these two signs here, they're both negative, right? These two are both negative. So, but they're the same. This is the one that a lot of kids actually get a little bit confused because the negative is there, they assume that it's negative. I mean, it's going to be different, right? It doesn't click. And I've seen this no matter where I've taught. It's very common. And part of the reason is I feel is early on, since the math is so simple with just adding and subtracting, that they do it in so many problems, so many that it becomes ingrained in them, right? So when they see a negative, because they're so used to subtracting, because the negative number concept comes later on, they see it and they're like, oh, subtracting, right? And that's what I think it is my opinion. I'm no expert in anything, but that's what I think it is. So the pattern that I've seen here when I ask this problem in class is that they're like the same. Some people say it's different because of that reason, but then I explain it the way I explain it, and those people that would different, I question them and they're like, oh no, they're the same. So they're like, okay, so it clicks. So anyway, so yes, so in this first problem here, the signs are the same, right? So in this one is the signs are the same in this problem right here. And where else? Right here. They're the same. Same signs. Now, what do I notice about those? I notice that the answer, oh my lord, is 5. But I'm sorry if I offended anybody by using that word. Yeah, I don't mean it. I don't mean to offend anybody, to be real. But if I do, I'm sorry, and please tell me, and I'll try to adjust. Anyways, so we notice that in the problems where the signs are the same, right? In this case, they're both positive, right? And then in the bottom, oh my goodness, in this case, they're both positive. I forgot. And then in this case, they're both negative. So the signs are the same. Because they're the same, I notice that the 5, they both have 5. So again, let's not worry about the sign yet. All right, right now I'm worrying about what's going on here. Okay, now the next part is, now I notice that in the part where it's different, this problem is different, and this problem, they're different signs. See, in this case, you gotta remember, in this case, right, different signs, right? Aquí están. So when I look at the answers, it's the same thing. They're both 1. Huh. So when I see two numbers that have the same sign, right? In this case, when two numbers have positives, it seems that I add them to get 5. 3 plus 2 is 5. That's the only way I can get 5. Again, let's not worry about what the sign of the answer is going to be. All I'm identifying right now is that when the signs are the same, these two numbers add, because that's the only way that these two, 3 plus 2, that's the only way they can make 5. The same thing here. Here the signs are the same. in order to get from 3 to 2, in order to get 5 the answer, these two must add. There's no other way. Now let's go to the different one. Here we have 3, here we have 2, here we have 3, same thing. But the signs are different. One is positive and one is negative. So to go from 3 and 2 to get 1, the only way to get 1 from 3 and 2 is by subtracting. That's the only way. So when the signs are different, you're going to have to subtract to get the answer for the number correct. So far, so good? So, recap. If the signs are the same, you add. So that's actually one that we could write. So we can, when the signs are the same, we add. Huh? We add when the signs are the same. And when the signs are different, we subtract. I know this is pretty much late, but if you happen to write this very small, I would suggest you stopping the video and rewriting this clearly. Take a bigger space. Just cross it out. And again, you're using pen, hopefully. Just cross it out and write it bigger, because this is important. I want you to kind of go back. It's not like I want you to go back. It's just the exercise of writing it, and while I'm explaining it and you visualizing it, are not struggling with how messy it is, how hard it is to read because you're crossing it out, whatever it is, right? Long story short, make sure that you have enough space. Anyways, okay, continue. So far so good. So if the signs are the same, right? The sign, you add 3 plus 3 plus 2 is 5. 3 plus 2 is 5. If the signs are different, 3 minus 2 is 1. 3 minus 2 is 1. That's the only way. Now that we figure that out, now let's look at the signs. Now let's look at this side over here. Now let's forget about this side. Let's not see this. Let's not see this right now. And just look at let's just look at that stuff, right? And let's identify these numbers and what signs they have. 5 we know is positive. It has nothing in the front. See what's here? Nothing. So we know this number is positive. What's here? Also nothing. So we know it's positive. What's here? Negative. And this one is also negative, right? So let's write that. So we know this one is positive. This one is also positive because there's nothing in front. This is negative and this is negative. So now what we need to figure out is, now let's figure out a pattern that we can figure out from the way these numbers are set up and see how they can be negative and positive. All right. So let's go quickly. Not quickly, but let's go without taking too many pauses now. So when we have in the top, this is positive. The signs are the same. The signs kind of is also positive. And let's look at the other one that's also the same. When it's negative, it's also negative. Okay, wait, okay. So over here, the signs are the same. They're both positive. We add, and the sign is also positive. Okay, so it stays the same. If the signs here are negative, they're both negative, you add them up, right? The signs are the same, you add. Oh, and the sign stays the same as well. So now let's look on the difference. So I wanted to go with the same because that's kind of the easy one. The easy one is like, okay, if they're the same sign, it stays the same, right? Now, if again, let's see if I can, if we remember the number line, right? The numbers with their sign means what direction you go, right? So if these two numbers here, if this is positive and this is positive, that means that you're going to go to the right side in the same direction. So it kind of makes sense that you're going to go to 5, right? If your little el primo, it starts at 0, right? And then it's going to go 3 1, 2, 3. That's your plus 3. And then it's going to go another 2. 1, 2, plus 2. Well, you end up plus 3, plus 2. You end up at plus 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was a horrible 5. But anyways, you get my drift, right? So the same thing. In the negative side, the same way. You have the 0 in the middle, the positive numbers on this side, negative numbers on this side, right? So if you start as 0, you go negative, -1, -2, -3, right? You're going to go 1, 2, 3. That's -3. Then you're going to go 1, 2, -2 again. So all this is -5. I hope that's why it was good to do the number lines and make sense of it, because it helps out to visualize it, right? So that this is not confusing at all. You're not questioning these. Math, you should not question, like, I mean, some of it I question still a lot, but this you should not question, right? The -3 means you go to the left 3 times. The -2 means you go to the left 2 times. Of course, you're going to end up at the -5 space. It perfectly makes sense. Okay? Now let's look at the difference. So the difference, what's the sign? Oh, let's look at this first, right? In this case, the 3 is negative. I'm sorry, the 3 is positive, and the 2 is negative. And the answer is positive. So we have positive, negative, and positive. Okay. So in this one, it's positive. All right, let's look at the other one. Negative, positive, and negative. All right, so in this one, it actually became negative. So let's see why. Let's see which one. Okay, so in this one, which one's the positive? Okay, the positive is the 3, and the negative is the 2. In this other one, the negative is the 3, and the positive is the 2. If you notice, the 3 is the bigger number in the problem. And the bigger number tends to win. If the bigger number is positive, it matches with the same sign of the answer. In this case, the 3 is the bigger number, is negative, which matches. Now let's make sense of this, right? If you have the little guy, you go, if you're going to go to one side more steps than the other side, you're going to end up in that side, right? So if you're going to go 1, 2, 3, you're going to end up at plus 3. You're going to go back 2, -2. You're going to end up at plus 1. All right? So that makes sense of it. But now we're identifying a pattern because we're going to come up with the rules. You know what I mean? So in this particular case is when the signs are different, you subtract, we got that. But what is the sign? Well, in this case, the sign is whatever the bigger number has. Whatever the bigger number sign is, that's the one that wins. All right? So now I think with that information, now we can come up with the rules. Now I'm going to write them here. You can write them below, but I'm going to write them here. And these are important. So normally some of the important stuff, I like to do it in blue. I don't know, just kidding. I just chose blue just because I don't see any other color. So let's do rules. Rules. So I'm just going to kind of write them down here, and then should I write them really nice? Because they're important too, to be real. Yeah. All right, so rules. Let's call it rules for adding dude, it's already there. All right, rules. All right. So now let's go to rule number 1. So the rule number 1 is going to be the one that's going to tell us how to add. So let's look at the problem here. Let's look at the ones that added. So this add and this added. So if the signs are the same sign, you add and you keep the same sign. You see that? If the signs are the same, both are positive, you add 3 plus 2 is 5, and you keep the same sign, which is also positive. So rule 1 for adding is, let's do that in orange, if. Just want to make sure I write it right. Okay, so for rule 1 is if Let's do a different color, I'm sorry. If the signs are the same, comma, add and keep the same sign. That's rule one. If the signs are the same, add and keep the same sign. That's it. I'm going to do an example. -1 minus 2 minus 4 equals, if the signs are the same, you add and keep the same sign. Are the signs the same? Yes, so let's add them. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 4 is 7. They're all negative, so the answer is negative. Simple. Same thing with positive. 1 plus 5 plus 6 plus 8. 1 plus 5 is 6, 6 plus 6 is 12, 12 plus 8 is 20. The signs are the same, they're all positive, you add and keep the same sign. Rule number 2. Subtract. When you add and when you subtract. So if we look at when we subtracted, which is when the signs are different. So when the signs are different, you subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1. 3 minus 2 is 1. You don't care about the sign yet. You just want to subtract, because this is the part that I want to say, okay, bring back a little bit of what you learned in elementary, right? The subtraction. How do you normally subtract? When the top number is bigger than the bottom number. And honestly, if that's what you have to do, if you have to sometimes go, if you have a problem that says, for example, 13 minus 45, for example, or, like 13 minus 45, for example, right? Before, the way you would do is like, it would be 45 minus 13. We're like, no, you can't put the negative number in the big, no, it was like this. It was 13 minus 45, like that. It was the other way, right? Like, no, you cannot have the negative, the smaller number at the top or something like that. Anyways, you see, I'm confused by talking about that. Scratch that. So rule 2, subtraction. So if the signs are different, you're going to subtract, right? But we already established you're going to keep the sign of the bigger number. The bigger number wins. When you're subtracting, you're taking away. It's like a tug of war, right? Hey, I'm bigger than you. I'm gonna end up winning, right? So that's what's happening, right? So for rule 2, is, if the signs are different, subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So if the signs are different, subtract and keep, that was an ugly guy, keep the sign of the bigger number. You know what? I should take my time to write the letters on. Bigger number. So rule 1 says, if the signs are the same, you add and keep the same sign, right? Rule 2 is, if the signs are different, you subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. Okay? Quick example. 4 minus 8. 4 minus 8. 4 is, nothing's in the front, so we know it's positive, right? So 4 minus, this one is negative, so there's different signs. So if there's different signs, we subtract. 8 minus 4 is 4, and the sign of the bigger number wins. Which one's bigger? 8. 8 is negative, so the answer is negative. Negative 4. That's it. Miss? No? All right. So now that we understand what the rules are, now we just have to apply them. And that's the whole thing about this. It's not that the rules are going to stick to your head and be like, got them, I read them, I understand them. Let's go play Xbox or whatever it is. No. When you learn something, when something clicks, it's a great moment, right? But taking that into practice right away, it helps reinforce that, right? And the thing is, like, you don't have to do a lot, you just have to do a couple, because what actually kind of helps reinforce everything means that after you kind of like do a couple problems just to reinforce what clicked right now, right? You wait a couple days or you wait a couple hours, whatever it is, and you just decide to do it back. You do it again, another problem, like you realize that it takes a little bit more effort to do, and that again reinforces it even more. It's no different than going to practice, right? You go to practice with your team and you decide to go practice, stay an hour late or go an hour earlier. You're just gonna be, those skills are gonna be reinforced in you a little bit better. Again, I'm going into a tangent, bro. Like, relax, Isaac. All right, so now let's go to some examples. Example 1. So example 1, I'm gonna put a couple, right? So it's gonna be 5 minus 8. That's the first one. The next one's gonna be negative 3 minus 4. Then it's gonna be 6 plus 8. And then lastly, it's gonna be negative 9 plus 14. Okay, so let's do. So the rule 1 is, if the signs are the same, add and keep the same sign. You add and keep the same sign. So first of all, let's look at the first one. The first one, we know the sign is 5. There's nothing in front. So we know this one's positive. This one, it tells us it's negative. The signs are different. So if the signs are different, that's rule 2. Subtract. See, it is different, right? So let's subtract. 8 minus 5 is 3. And then it says, if the signs are different, subtract. Done. Okay, and then keep the sign of the bigger number. Which one's bigger? Is 8 bigger or 5 bigger? Now again, I don't want to get confused. Negative 8 is smaller because it's negative 8. Positive is bigger. We're not worrying about the signs right now. We already identified. Now it's just literally just the number. 8 is just bigger than 5, right? So 8's the winner. What sign does 8 have? Negative. So that means my answer is negativo, or negative. And I can say teacher. That's it. So the next one. So let's see. This one is negative. This one is negative. See? So in this case, the signs are the same. They're exactly the same sign, negative and negative. So if the signs are the same, add and keep the sign of keep the same sign. Add and keep the same sign. So let's add these two. So this one is 3 plus 4 is 7, and we keep the same sign, which is also negative. And that's our answer for that. And then the same thing here. For this one, 6 is positive because there's nothing in front. And then we have positive for 8. The signs are the same. Rule says, if the signs are the same, add and keep the same sign. 6 plus 8 is 14. They're both positive, so it stays positive. Now, honestly, this annoys me. I'm just kidding. I don't care. But some teachers do. It does. Some teachers don't like it, right? Like when you have your final answer and you write plus 14, they'll be like, bro, why in the world are you putting plus? When you don't write anything again. But again, it's up to anybody. I don't really care. Me personally, I just don't add it. After all that, right? Anyways, so that's what that is. Ya acabamos. Now the next one, easy enough. Negative. Here's in front of it, it's a minus, so it's negative, and in front of it is positive. Again, different signs. If the signs are different, subtract. If the signs are different, subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So we subtract 14 minus 9 is 5. And we keep the sign of the bigger number, which is 14 is the bigger number. So it stays positivo because 14 is positive. That's it. That's it. Now, obviously, your problems are not going to be that easy. This is just to understand the rules. If the signs are the same, you add and keep the same sign, right? If the signs are different, you subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. Now let's now talk about it and see how that looks. So, like simple enough, if let's say you just want to work to buy something, simple enough. That's like the thing that everybody always uses as an example, right? Um, you know, you want to buy a PS5. Dude, I'm honestly like, I don't even make this too long because it's annoying. But let's say you want to buy something, a mystery box that this guy says it's $1, right? Whatever. Let's say let's say you just want to buy something, and this something costs $30. That's how much it costs, right? Now you don't work, you don't have a job, but you're trying to figure it out, right? Now someone gives you the idea of like, hey, you know what? Sell some chips. That's, I don't know, whatever, right? People used to sell things at school, candy, whatever. I don't know how it is now, but let's say, let's make it simpler than that. Let's say you come from a well-off place where you can do little gigs here and there, right? Helping family members, do extra things or whatever. The thing is that you receive some income and you start figuring out that it's going to take you X amount of jobs for you to get the amount of money. Okay, so I'm not gonna make this too complicated, but at first you're trying to get $30. So at first you don't have them. So in this case, let's call them -30 because you don't have that dollar. You don't have that. What do people say? That bread? I don't know. So whatever. So you're trying to get $30. So right now you're at -$30. You need to come up. You need to have positive net $30, right? How are you gonna get this? You're gonna work for it. You're going to put effort for it, right? Positive things. Positive deeds or actions. You know what I'm saying? To get those $30, right? So it could be that on one job, you get $5. And how did you get $5? You get $5 by agreeing with your neighbor when you're junior high to cut her grass, right? Now I was like, hey, I'll help you out, whatever reason, Well, the reason was to make money. And but the thing is, I didn't have one of those electric lawnmowers, right? It was those lawnmowers, they look like this. They look like this, right? And then you kind of like, and then these things spin. These had wheels and they spin, of course, right? But here it would be like a shredder. And it would be like scissors. It would be just shredding, right? And you would have to kind of like just get extra. I mean, I would do it in my backyard. You just push it, right? The thing is, like, I knew how fast I did my parents' backyard, right? Um, so I did. She's like, yeah, I did $5, bro. Her grass was so thick. It was. I think it was like, what's it called? That thick one. It's called oh my goodness, and we have it too. Anyways, I forget it. But it was this thick grass that as hard as I could push, the thing would get stuck in the grass, bro. The grass was so big that this was getting stuck. So I would push it, and it would just advance like an inch. Dude, I'm getting too much to carry it on, but it was such a horrible, like, you know what? It was such a beautiful experience. People watching me struggle. Dude, honestly, I would be surprised if people were laughing at me, but it wasn't until my mother neighbor came in and is like, "Here, I'll let you borrow my lawnmower for 5 bucks." No, I didn't say that. He was going to let me borrow his lawnmower. And not only did I finish the job quickly, but I did a little bit more things. Now and then the crazy thing is like she gave me 5 bucks, bro. Like despite me seeing struggle and everything, it was 5 bucks she gave me. She could have been like, dude, here's like six, seven. But then now thinking, I'm like, you know what? That's awesome that she did that and helped me out, because who knows what's happening behind anyone's home, anyone's like door, right? From the door inside, who knows what's going on. So, I'm just gonna keep it at that. But yeah, anyways, so you get 5 bucks on job number one, and then you get another 10 bucks, and then all of a sudden you get 30. No, not 30. Let's not go crazy. Then all of a sudden you get like 20 bucks, bro. Like you get 10 bucks for doing, what do you want to call it, job two, but then you get 20 bucks by doing what? Let's do something crazy. 20 bucks? Who would give you 20 bucks? I don't know. What do people do now? Clean windows. Clean windows, right? So you clean windows and you get all this. So that's what's happening. Like you are already doing this in your head when you're visualizing this, right? You're like, I need 30 bucks to buy this stuff. Right now I have 5 bucks because I cut grass that took me forever, whatever, right? Dude, see, that's a trauma, right? So this, right? This is what you have. So you just have to, like, you're already doing this. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. So this is your negative, and these are your positives. Now, what are you doing with these? What are you doing with all these positives here? You're adding them, right? Because of the why? Because of the rule. The rule says if the signs are the same, you add and keep the same sign. Right? Okay. Now let's go back. Now let's do another example. This one's going to be different. Okay? Example 2. Example dos. My goodness. Dude, even vertical. I can't even do my eights correct. Okay, 6 plus 2 plus 3 minus 4 plus 11 minus 5 plus 7. If you're wondering, what is this guy looking at? I'm actually looking at my notes. Like, they're actually written lectures that I have. So people who join my class or are actually in my lectures, I sent these out. Like, they have this available on the first day, every lecture. They're written down, but I still encourage them to have their notebook. But these are, there's always those kids that, they want to look before what's going on. Hey, to each their own. No judging. Okay, so now we have these problems, right? So this problem, so what's the rule? If the signs are the same, you add and keep the same sign. If the signs are different, you subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. Right? Okay. So let's first identify all the signs for each number. Okay? So nothing in here. Positive, negative, positive, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. Yes? So if I know the rules, I can solve this. Now, I have to be strategic on how I'm going to solve this, because I can literally go, I'm going to do 2 at a time. So I'm going to do these 2 first. So it's like, you know what? Let me ignore everything first. Let me ignore that. Right? And let me just do that. And then what's 8 minus 6? Well, 8 minus 6, the signs are different, so you subtract. So 8 minus 6 is 2. Right? So which one's bigger? 8. 8 is positive, so the answer is positive 2. So then what I do is I write positive 2 here. I write positive 2 here. And then everything else would stay the same. What do I mean by that? It would be like this. It would be this, and this would be positive 2. Right? This wouldn't be here. and this would change into positive 2, and now I would have that. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that every single thing for these two. Then whatever I get, I do with these two, and then whatever I get with these two. No, I don't want to do that. That defeats the whole purpose. Math is about efficiency. Dude, honestly, there's like crazy reports that I make at work that pinpoints what needs to be done. Like where the efficiencies and where the inefficiencies are. We know where, anyways, I don't want to get into that. But so the way that numbers work is we got to be strategic on how we do this. Now we know the rules. That's all we have. The rules is if the signs are the same, you add. So what if you had to choose between adding or subtracting, what would be easier? Adding or subtracting? Now, obviously, if I ask 10 kids, there's going to be some kids that said subtracting for me is easier. Hey, to each their own, and it's cool. But I'm going to encourage, in this case, jump on the bandwagon with addition. Addition is the easiest thing to do, right? So what are we gonna, so what is the rule for adding? If the signs are the same, you add and keep the same sign. Okay, so here, this is our problem. What I'm going to do here is now I need to know what numbers I can add together. And the numbers that I can add together are the numbers that have the same sign. Here are my positives. That's why it's good to identify them. Because if we identify the numbers that have the same signs, we're good, bro. Like we can honestly jump really quickly into the answer. Right? So let's first add. Now, honestly, what's easier to add, negatives or positives? People, it doesn't matter. I'm cool, whatever. For me, it's positives. So I'm gonna circle all the positives. So let's use in this case a different color, yellow. Nah, yellow's too dark. So let's use blue for positive. So we have positive for blue. Here it is. And honestly, I don't even whatever. Just do it like that. This is just for visual, right? This is just so you can visually see it. These positive, these circles. Eventually, you don't do that. You do that only aquí mero in your little head. But anyways, so first of all, these are all my positives. So you're going to add these. If the signs are the same, you add and keep the same sign. Perfect. All right. So let's add them. 8 plus 2. 8 plus 2 is 10. Now, hold on. Let's use this. 8 and 2 is 10. Plus 3. 13 plus 11, 13 plus 11, 24 plus 7, 31. If you can't add, hey bro, you gotta add, bro. You gotta learn how to add. Okay, so 8 plus 2 is 10. Or you can be strategic and figure out, okay, so if I gotta add all the ones that are circled, okay, so 7 plus 3 is 10. 10 plus 11 is 21. 21 plus 2 is 23. Or 21 plus 8 is 29. Plus 2 is 31. Still, you get the same answer. So 31. And if the signs are the same, you add and keep the same sign. So in this case, it's 31 positive, but we do not write positive when we don't need to, right? So in this case, I don't need to. So now the next thing is the negatives. So all these are negatives. Here they are. And what do I notice by the negatives? That they all 6, 4, and 5, they all have negatives. So do these have the same sign? Do these have the same sign as well? Yes, they do. They're all negatives. They have the same sign. So so we could go back. Here it is. Here we did this one. If the signs are the same, you add and keep the same sign. Right? If the signs are the same, you add and keep the same sign. So in this case, they're all negatives. So we add them as well. But we're just going to keep the sign that they all have, which is negative. So let's do that. So 6 plus 4. A ver, otra vez. 6 plus 4 is 10. Plus 5 is 15. So it's 15. And in this case, it's negative because we keep the same sign. Now, you could have also done the negatives first. If you wanted to add the negatives first, you would have been, okay, it's 15. But then because there's nothing here, you would put that it's negative. So it would be negative 15. And then because you're putting the 31 here, you would, in this case, you would have to put the positive. So it would look negative 15 plus 31. Again, it's the same nonsense. Because positive means that you're going to go to the right that many times. Negative means that you're going to go to the left that many times. So it doesn't matter how you're writing it as long as you know which one's negative and which one's positive. All right. So I'm going to leave it like that because I always like to do positives first. Now, in this case, what do we have now? Now, 31 is positive, right? And 15 is negative. And now we just have the two single ones, right? And if you do your math like this every single time, you're going to end up with two numbers, no matter how big the top is, right? Like it might be too big where you have to make it smaller in some cases, but you can do that on the side anyways. So in this cases, they're both different. So let's go to the rules. Here they are. If the signs are different, you subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So let's subtract. What's 31 minus 15? Oh my goodness. I don't know. 31. You see what I mean? So like sometimes, like I know it's 16, but let's say you don't know. So you would just set it up. 31 minus 15, right? So what do? So this becomes 11. This becomes 2. 11 minus 5, that's 6. 2 minus 1, that's 1, right? Oh no, that's wrong. That's wrong. So 31. Oh no, it is. My bad. Oh my god, I'm tripping up. Okay, so here, so if you do this subtraction, 31 minus 15 is 16. And you keep the sign of the bigger number. In this case, which one's bigger? 31, and 31's positive, so it stays positive, and we don't write a positive because we don't do that. Any questions? Any questions? No one's here. That's pretty much it, dude. That's it. So if we just do one last one for fun, not for fun, just because we want to understand really well, right? But so this time I'm gonna go quicker. So this is example 3, and let's just make it up. -4 plus 8 minus 3 minus 4 plus 7 plus 3 minus 10. So let's play left. Okay. All right. So if we have this problem, the same thing, we can identify it again quickly. You can visualize it, but this one is negative. This one's positive, negative, negative, positive, positive, and negative. So we know. We know what's going on here now. Now here's another trick I'm going to tell you. So before we go on, let me ask you, what's this? Not that. What's this? What would be the answer? 0. What's this? Also 0. So now let's look at both of them. So let's look at this. They're both the same, right? Both numbers, and they both have different signs. Positive, negative, negative, positive. They're both the same though. That equals it. Now I want you to notice when the numbers are the same, but the signs on each number are different, one is positive and one is negative, what's the answer? 0. And if you think about it, it should make sense, right? If you start at 0 and you go positive 4 to one side, and then negative 4 means you go back 4 steps, you can end up in the same place. If you go to the left 4 times and then you go forward 4 times, you're going to end up in the same place. So that's why 0. You didn't go anywhere. So why am I bringing this up? Because now let's look at this problem, and now tell me, when do you have a situation where a positive number and a negative number cancel each other out? So here we have a positive 3, and here we have a negative 3. These both are the same number, but they have different signs, so they can cancel each other out. So we can actually cancel these guys out. Make sense? We can even go a little bit further than that and say, hey, you know what? We're also found out, I know these two are -7. So if I use these two, combine these two, and these two, this and this one plus 7, this cancels out as well. It's 0. So there's all these little tricks that you're going to be able to figure out as you move along this class that I'm going to bring up, or even you might recognize. Okay, so now if I do this quickly, the same thing. I mean, okay, so let me identify the positives. I will always like to identify the positives first. Okay, so positives is positive 8, positive 7, and positive 3. So let's add those two up. Let's add those three. So 3 plus 7 is 10, plus 8 is 18. So we know it's 18. And again, I don't put that it's I don't put the plus inside in the front because, you know, when there's nothing, we know it's positive. And then obviously then we do the negatives. The negatives, here it is, negative, 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 negative. Those signs are also the same, right? So we're going to add those up as well. So we're going to go, let's do 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 3 is 8. 8 plus 4 is 12. So the answer is 12. And because, and remember, if the signs are the same, you add and keep the same sign. So let's go back to our problem. So the negatives, all these are negatives, right? They're negative. So since they all have the same sign, negatives, we add them up. 4 plus 3 is 7. 7 plus 4 is 11. 11 plus 1 is 12. And the rule says if the signs are the same, you add and keep the same sign. So in this case, the sign for this one is negative. So now that you have that, now you have, you understand that this one's positive, this one's negative. There's nothing in front, so we know it's positive. So now the signs are different. So you go to the rule 2. The rule 2 says if the signs are different, you subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So first you subtract, and then you just say, hey, which one's bigger? ¿Cuál gana? ¿Cuál está más grande? Ese primo, ese es. Okay, so different signs, we subtract. 18 minus 12 is 6. Which one sign is bigger? 18 is a bigger number, so the answer is positive. So that's the answer. That's pretty much it, man. So that's the whole class. This is the first lecture. So if you made it this far, congratulations. Right now I see it's 0. That's funny, huh? But anyways, no. But again, I go back to my goal on this. It would be great if people participated and people kind of knew about this little by little. They will, but regardless of even if they don't, right? As I'm doing this, or while I'm still doing this, even if this comes out later, I really hope it helps you because I'll be real. A lot of kids, a lot of students, they graduate high school knowing college algebra math, and I'm serious. If you just stick to the course, you're gonna be able to be in algebra, or at least pre-algebra, without having any issues, having a strong foundation. So right now we learned a heavy thing: positives and negative numbers, and if anything, the rules. If the signs are the same, you add and keep the same sign. Makes sense. You're going to the same direction. If they're both negatives, if they're all negatives, you're going to the left. If they're all positive, you're going to the right. So you better add those up. And just know when they're different, well, you're just gonna know, okay, where do I end up? Well, it makes sense that you're gonna end up whatever the bigger number is at, because that's where you took more steps towards, right? So anyways, thank you again, and we'll see you next time. Laters.